Well, I had a note in my mailbox this weekend, and it was from my college roommate. And she was doing a spiritual practice exercise from Lent through Easter and writing notes of appreciation to the people that she loves in her life. And it was just a really sweet note, and it was, I'm going to give something away here, filled with 25 years of memories from our college days to me getting to officiate her wedding, to being with her as she was pregnant and having her first child. And I think all of us appreciate gaining a little recognition, that place of being noticed, especially being noticed by those people that we love. But recognition helps us gain a perspective about ourselves, and it helps us gain an understanding of others in our lives. And we can see on mornings like today, when families come walking down the sidewalk or children come running down the hallways to see those that they love. Eyes light up, grins grow from ear to ear, and arms are extended wide open for hugs. And it's often in those moments of recognition that everyone else around just becomes background. And it is the lack of recognition that gives our reading this morning part of its power. Cleopas and his friend are walking down the road towards Emmaus, filled with grief, and begin sharing with a stranger who joined them all about the teacher with whom they had placed all of their faith and all of their hope. But he was here walking with them, and their eyes were kept from recognizing him. And is it because they were being tricked, or is it so out of context that they couldn't comprehend who this stranger might be? Well, I think it might also be that they were so full of grief that they had lost hope. 4 of the most heartbreaking words pop up in the middle of this story. But we had hoped. But we had hoped. So much is said in those 4 words. They speak of a future that is not to be, a dream that created energy and enthusiasm and took people on a journey. But that dream did not materialize. And a promise that created faith that they felt ended up being false. It speaks of a future that is closed off and now irrelevant, dead. And there are few things that feel more tragic and sad than a future that is dead, that we feel is over. Because many of us know that it's not just the tragedy of what happened that hurts, but that gaping hole of all that could have happened but won't. It's where we often find ourselves getting stuck in holding on to the events or of the past, or dreaming about what might have been. And in that, we miss what is happening in the present. But we had hoped. Such heartbreaking words. Can you think of a time when you've said those words or felt them deep in your heart? I love this story, and I love this journey to Emmaus. And these words are heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time. And not because I enjoy wallowing in pain or sentimental emotions, but because they ring so true. They are not only the truth of life. They are not the only truth of life, because we also experience so much in this life that is beautiful, that is daring and confident and inspiring and more. All of which deserves our gratitudes and all that lifts our spirits. But we also know that there is disappointment and there's heartbreak, there's failure. There are relapses. There are moments when the bubble bursts and when we come down off that pink cloud. In our discomfort, we feel pressure, sometimes from within ourselves and sometimes from others, to move too quickly in our grief and disappointment to some kind of resolution. A friend shares the news of a death in their family, and we sympathize, but we get uncomfortable and we want to change the subject. Or a colleague shares their disappointment on not getting a promotion, and we remind them that at least they have a job. Or someone shares about a loss, and we offer the slogan, "Let go and let God," but we say it as we're trying to get away from them and the discomfort we feel in that moment, because we don't know what else to say. And I don't think it's about being callous or insensitive, but just that oftentimes we are at a loss when it comes to loss. Most people feel inadequate to the task of delving into the darkness of our lives in this world, and so we flee in denial. We want to rush to the places, like in our story this morning, where their hearts are burning. But before their hearts were burning, their hearts were broken. This place and this program, this is a place that welcomes those broken hearts. This Cumberland Heights and this program know the importance of recognizing that part and parcel of being human is also recognizing when we feel broken. And we do get wounded by things that happen in life. Addiction can break the spirit. It wounds that soul place where we know our connection with God and self and others. And addiction wounds that ability to recognize who we are even outside of addiction. And it is to these heartbroken disciples in our reading that God comes, walking along with them the whole time. And the same can be said for us. God is walking right along with us. Even when we don't, or even when we can't recognize God in our life due to our grief and due to our woundedness. But God is with us, teaching us through this program, through those moments that we share with other people, through the stories that we hear. God is with us as people gather around the tables in the dining room, sharing a meal that not only leaves our bellies full, but also our spirits that are full of laughter and support and that feeling of fellowship. And in all of this, there are these moments when we can notice that our hearts and our spirits are burning once again. They are starting to come back to life. The fog is clearing, and clarity, serenity, and connection prompt us back into the world. But we get to remember that all of this started with a broken heart that was allowed and invited to share its disappointment, its hurt, its anger, its fear. And that is where the healing can begin. God invites us to bring our grief and our hurt because sharing begins the healing. And in sharing our hurt allows us to begin to hear and possibly believe that there is a life of fullness still waiting for us. We need to be recognized as we are in order to begin the healing. One of the baffling parts of this disease is that so many people in early recovery have this experience of that I believe that there is something greater than me out there, but I can't feel it. I can't get connected. And I think Cleopas and his friend must have had similar feelings. They knew something. They knew something that they had believed. They'd been given the information, but they just weren't able to recognize God. They weren't able to get connected in that moment. And they just stood there, staring at this stranger and looking sad. A pastor colleague of mine talks about a time when his church signed him up for a Saturday morning mission trip. And he was feeling pretty disgruntled and having a bit of a pity party because he usually spent Saturday mornings writing his sermon so he could have free time Saturday evening, either with his family or to go do something that he wanted to do. Well, he got on the church bus and he sat next to a man who had gone through the program that they were getting ready to go visit. And the man began to tell him about his life and his struggle with addiction, how he'd gotten kicked out of his house and various family members' houses due to his continued use until he found himself homeless. Well, we know that woundedness. We know that pain. And then he shared that a stranger rescued him and took him to the program that they were going to go visit that day. And he had that chance, that opportunity to be able to get sober. And that led to getting a job. And that job helped him get a home. And in that, he found family again. And his words were that I'm thankful that God never gave up on me. God is so very good, so very good. And then as they arrived at the facility, he heard more stories of gratitude, of healing, of people being able to recognize how God had been with them through their addiction, even when they couldn't recognize it at the time. He heard people over and over share their gratitude with words like, I thank God that I have a roof over my head. I'm grateful that I have food on the table. I'm grateful that I'm learning how to type and use a computer for the first time so I can get a job. And another saying that I am grateful for this place and the people who are part of this place, because without it, I don't think I would be alive. And finally, another shared these words with him. I just thank everyone I see, because you never know who the angels are among us. A higher power that is love, a higher power that has grace and forgiveness and mercy, does not forget about anyone. A higher power that does not forget you brings about transformation and healing, brings that burning to the heart and the spirit that comes through gratitude, that comes through recognizing that God is working through people all around us all the time. When we believe in a higher power who never gives up on anyone, then in turn, that means we can't either. We can recognize strangers who come out of nowhere to offer a helping hand, about angels who are even unaware of how they are reflecting God's love to us. And we can recognize how our own pain can be transformed to new hope, how our pity parties, when we fall into them, can be turned over by being grateful for those things that we can see and that we know we have, and also of being service to others. So let us give thanks to a God who is with us on the roads that we do travel, that offers understanding when all we can see in the world is hardship and despair, and offers us healing and transformation so we can be reminded once again that there is grace and there is hope. And may we be humble enough in our most trying times to seek out God and to recognize God's presence with us so that our hearts may burn within us. Amen.